Good morning. Welcome to this morning's service. Uh, I want to start out by reminding everybody, well, in Dharma School, that next week there's no Dharma School service. That's the 29th because of Thanksgiving. And then the following week is our Bodhi Day service, which is a 10 o'clock combined family service. So for the next 2 weeks, the 29th and the 6th of December, the 29th of November and the 6th of December, there's no Dharma School classes. There will be a 9:30 service though next week, and so please, uh, if you can, if you're, Michael Jones will be our speaker for the 9:30 service, and for the 10:10 service, Dennis Akizuki will be our speaker. So next week, the 27th, is it the 27th? I had it printed out, but it's in really tiny little print. The 29th, sorry, the 29th of November. There will be a 9:30 service. Michael Jones will be our speaker, and a 10:10 service. Dennis Akizuki will be our speaker. And then the following week, December the 6th, Dr. Scott Mitchell from the Institute of Buddhist Studies will be our speaker for Bodhi Day. Did I get that date right? Bodhi Day, yes, December the 6th, the following week. So we'll begin. It's an odd way maybe to start out, but I have to mention that before I forget. Okay, so we'll begin this morning's service. If you please join in the reading of Sambujo, followed by Sambutsuke. Namanda, 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 namanda.
님 삼마이지에 이거금은여 셔샤케업 긴나이 젠넨 샤무즈호카이 그진진노 구멍나이 타이모야야그룹 세선영은 인나시십 진가금은여 금은나이 기에짐여 보며 이소신나 나이센 남나사무즈사이쇼 가도쇼지 미방에 나트브세조인 가이민쇼진 여세 삼나이지에 이종어세 동음은 은여신간 이사이쿠쿠 이사다이안 계시어무즈야구센노그만무려나이쇼 전여고자쿠여 이사이시도쇼무 은영근도 갱쇼분약 인용모자쇼무즈생나이 부분강에 무셔세츠노 고녀시쇼 겐시쇼 고근여세쇼진 인진난요령나사무즈모쿠노나이징어 슈키묘 노조조즈 고근여나이 온니무 토송아 도이민 도나츠 이사이지 도라이쇼 진네츠 쇼조 이도나 고쿠케라구 안나 고무츠 신묘생나신쇼 고츠난노 히리키쇼쇼여쿠진모세 지엠왕의 조녀시손 진나신요 개녀심시쇼근노근즉 강요쇼진
Okay, now let us read Golden Chain together. Hands together in Gassho. I'm a link in the Mida's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I will keep my link bright and strong. I will be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will think pure and beautiful thoughts, say pure and beautiful words, and do pure and beautiful deeds. May every link in Amida's golden chain of love be bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Ohayou gozaimasu. Okay, how are you doing? I hope you are doing well. So the holiday season is coming soon. Are you excited? I guess this season is one of the most exciting seasons of the year for many of you. Maybe family and friends get together, share a big dinner with everyone, and share a fun time. This is something we took for granted until last year. However, as you know, especially this year, gatherings are a lot different from our normal life due to this pandemic. We have experienced many unexpected and inconvenient situations since the shelter in place was issued this much. However, I think this hard situation, in a sense, gives us a great chance to realize important things for our lives. Something we have taken for granted is actually something hard to make it happen unless every time in a situation happens to perfectly match and help them happen. And I would say that it is also hard for us to realize this if we live a normal life. But now, many of you might have realized how valuable it was and how difficult it was for us to have a normal life under this unusual situation. In Shinran Shoni's writings, he mentions many difficult and hard in his writing hard things that we get in our lives. Can you guess how many times Shinran Shoni mentioned difficult and hard in his main writing, Kyogyo Shinsho? I actually counted the number of the phrase of hard or difficult. He mentioned hard and difficult 73 times, according to my research. So I'm sorry if it's wrong, but yeah, that is a lot, right? For example, in his Gatha Shoshinge, he said, "It is hard to accept in Shinjin this most difficult of difficulties. Nothing surpasses." Here's another example in his main writing, Kyogyo Shinsho again. Hard to encounter even in many lifetimes. Is it decisive course of birth? Amida's universal law. And difficult is it to be born to be able to hear the right Dhamma. It doesn't mean the Shinon Shoni lament the difficulty of this teaching, but the repetition of hard and difficult means not everyone can be born into human life and encounter the teaching of Buddhism. So he intentionally repeated these words to stress how wonderful and miraculous it is for us to be able to be born into human life and encounter the teaching of Buddhism here and now. However, how many of us think it is wonderful that we could be able to born into human life and hear Buddhism? We happen to be here as a human being and hear teaching. We tend to take it for granted, but again, this is actually hard and difficult to make it happen for us. Kakunyo, who is the third spiritual reader of our tradition, expressed difficulties of being born into human life and hearing the teaching in his adoration called Hoon Koshiki, Liturgy of Gratitude. This adoration was read by Kakunyo at 33rd years in memorial service for Shinan Shonin to appreciate his contributions and express Kakunyo's appreciation of Nembutsu. Here, he mentions an example. Imagine there's a long and thin thread coming down from the sky and a sewing needle. Being born into human life is much harder to pass the thread through the needle from the sky. Here, I have a needle and a thread. So if you try to pass it through at your hands right now, it is hard. Let me try. Yeah, it's so difficult. I cannot see the hole. Sorry. Yeah, so it's hard to do it. But of course, if it's 3 feet away, it's super hard. Yeah, and as Kakunyo mentions, if it came from the sky, this thread coming from the sky, and it's almost possible to pass it through to the needle's hole, right? But if it goes, it is a miracle. Here's one more example. Here's one more thing. Imagine again. There's a floating log in a huge ocean, and the blind turtle is also swimming there. Here, I have a toy turtle. Imagine this is a turtle, and I have a floating log. It seems like a glue stick, but this is a log. Yeah. So according to Kakunyo, the blind turtle lives up to the surface once every 100 years. Once every 100 years, he rises up to the surface. So according to Kakunyo, to encounter Buddhism is actually much more difficult than the possibility of the blind turtle going inside the hold of the floating log, like something like this. This is really super miracle because the blind turtle cannot see anything and cannot see anything, and he doesn't know where the log is in the vast ocean, right? But and as I said earlier, he rises up only once 100 year. It's very very rare and almost impossible to go inside the hole of this floating log, right? But it happened. When it happened, it would be a miracle, right? Look at those. Look at ourselves. We are fortunately born into a human being here and now, and miraculously happen to be able to encounter a teaching Buddhism. Are you happy with it? Kakunyo continued his adoration to express his joy as follows. Regardless of these difficulties, here we are fortunate to be able to encounter the hardest teaching to encounter and to hear the most difficult teaching to hear, thanks to Shinan Shonin's guidance. So Nembutsu, we casually recite, is actually something amazing because we originally did not how to recite by ourselves. We would have never recited Nembutsu in our life. Our gasho is also amazing because we originally didn't know gasho by ourselves. Without any guidance, our hands might never have been pressed in our heart. Again, I ask you, are you happy with it? I didn't know I was happy with it. I was happy with it. I didn't think I was happy with it because I took it for granted in my life. But we might be able to value what we have already had when we have our chance to make us realize the value and the difficulty of encountering in our life. Shinan Shonin's hard and difficult phrases tells us how miraculous and joyous what we have already received is. So I can say congratulations to each of you, each of us this morning, because we are able to receive human life here and hear the teaching of Buddhism, which not everyone can do. It is wonderful. So please enjoy your holiday with your important people and appreciate the time you share with them, which is very miraculous to make it happen. Thank you for listening. So I'd like to conclude this Dhamma talk with Gasho. So please join me in Gasho again. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Arigato.
Thank you, Mikabe Sensei. When we were discussing her Dharma talk, I have an opportunity to kind of, she asks me to kind of help with the language. And it's a challenge for me too, because English is a second language for me. My Pidgin is my first language. Actually, so when I saw 73 times, and I kind of cracked up because she actually went through counting the number of times that Shinran wrote difficult, hard and difficult it is. So the difficulty of encountering the Dharma, of being able to enjoy the Dharma, something that we can, when we think about, maybe something that we can truly enjoy. I hope everyone has a safe holiday. We're being warned by the CDC and all kinds of people that we should avoid large gatherings, and certainly this is true in this holiday time. It is the first time that we're in this season with under this pandemic raging around us. Please do be careful. Think of one another and as you plan this holiday season. The first challenge coming up this Thanksgiving, this coming Thursday. There's no Macy Days parade as we have had it in the past. I think they're going to be walking around Herald Square near New York's Macy's. No more big balloons, so it's going to be very different. No football as we have known it in the past. The whole, all of it has been changing. Buddhism reminds us of how things change, and there are still things, experiences to be enjoyed in these times, and certainly our family and friends within the Nembutsu, all experiences that we can enjoy and share with one another. Again, thank you very much, everyone. As we conclude, will you please join in Gassho and Nembutsu? Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. And please remember, no Dharma school for the next 2 weeks, this coming Thanksgiving weekend and the following Bodhi Day service day, Sunday. There will be no Dharma school. We'll see you back on December the 13th in our Dharma school classes. Next week, Sunday at the 9:30 service, Michael Jones will speak, be our guest speaker, and at the 10:10 service, Dennis Akizuki will be our 10:10 service speaker. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Have a good, safe holiday. Good morning. Welcome to this morning service. Hope you are staying well and warm Kathy has, well, I shouldn't has made me, but I'm starting to wear, what's this called? Heath Tech. It's Heath Tech. Is it from what's that called? Uniqlo. Uniqlo Heath Tech. So it's like a undergarment that keeps you warm because I'm always cold. So Kathy said, "Here, wear these," and so I'm starting to wear Heath Tech now. But stay warm. Don't catch cold. It's not a. And be sure to get um, your flu shot. Kathy and I still have to go get our flu shot, but uh, be sure to take care of your health in this changing weather. Because since I noticed that there was frost out this morning in the garden, and certainly driving in, you could see it on the rooftops and on the lawns. So it is. It's the end of November, uh, and Thanksgiving is this week, and we're entering into well into the fall. A lot of nice memories, a lot of nice experiences, uh, people gathering together. But of course, this year it will be all very different. Uh, but the feeling doesn't have to change. How we do that will have to change. But the experiences that remind us of the importance of the life that we share with the people around us will, of course, have to change. But that feeling, that connection we share with one another, certainly will continue to support our lives, bring meaning, importance in our relationship to the people around us. We'll begin this morning's service. If you'll please read and join in the reading of Sambujo and Junidai. If we'll read Junidai together. Thank you. Namanna, 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 namanna.
苦痛自在고나 초라입니다 손 기뻐며 몸보사슈 은여 쇼마 조산단 이쇼슈 조난 니기주 고나 초라입니다 손 온타이 호켄지 쇼킴 생몬 쇼조면나이사 오히사 조뇨센모 고나 초라입니다 손 기뻐 쇼라이 쇼무심 행행진스시 안하 생모 송행적응요 공아 초라입니다 손 쇼음은 교문나도 야분요 스인나즈넨 여로 이슈세포문여지 공나 초라입니다 손 이손그세즈무 아프며 야금은 연이 아무먹음 주니 시신교희손 공나 초라입니다 손 이손무료맹교 무쇼슈아
Will you please join now in the reading of the three treasures. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not deliver ourselves in the present life, no hope is there that we shall be freed from suffering and sorrow in the ocean of birth and death. Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in Buddha. May we all together absorb into ourselves the principle of your way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves our supreme will. I take refuge in Dharma. May we all together be submerged in the depth of thy doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we all together become units in true accord in your life of harmony, in a spirit of universal brotherhood, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Again, welcome to this morning service. I hope you are staying warm and enjoying this time of the year as best as we can. It is a time of that challenges even more so our imagination, challenges how we might be able to kind of fit into this new way of living our lives. And it's almost it's more than 8 months now, I think it is, that we've been sheltered in place. There have been times in which we have been released into another level, and we could go back into some activities, and then to have to shut down again. And now it is an extremely dangerous time in which there are cases continuing to rise. So many people who have been affected by this disease. The other day, someone was saying how it doesn't feel like we're together in this pandemic. It feels like it's out there somewhere, and it doesn't. It may touch me, but not. It may be simply a matter of inconvenience to me. But to allow the death of 250,000 people to sink into our awareness and into our consciousness, it doesn't seem to have taken hold of of an urgency in our lives. We compare it to so many other things, the number of deaths, but it's been less than a year in which 250,000 people in our communities, in our lives, have come to an end. We see it off in a distance somewhere in some other city or some other state, and it doesn't seem to be really sinking in. And I know I read these numbers as well, and it's not as startling as I think as it should be. The number of people who have been affected by this pandemic, and the urgency with which we should adhere to those protocols and practices that will help to reduce the effects of this disease on our communities, our family, the people around us. our behavior has certainly been changed. And I think the best way that we can try to think of this is to think of the other, that someone else might be affected by my behavior. Even if I'm not someone who is a transmitter of this disease, being by observing these protocols, simply things like wearing masks and social distancing, uh, it encourages perhaps others to do the same. It is modeling behavior that um, can benefit others, not necessarily again to preventing something that I may have being transmitted, but that even if I don't have the disease, if I'm not a carrier, by modeling good behavior, others may see that and begin to recognize that this is something that we that we should and we must do. More and more in our community, especially here, where we are kind of more uh, observant of that kind of behavior, uh, that we recognize the need uh, to be careful, be concerned with the welfare of others. We go out into our communities and we see more people actually wearing masks, and kind of even as we cross paths on the sidewalk, we'll kind of separate, still acknowledging the other person, but separate ourselves so that we reduce the chance of transmitting or receiving this disease. But it's just kind of practice that we need to incorporate into our lives. Regardless of what may or may not be going on in the world around us, we do know that there is a disease that is running uh, through all humanity, through all of the lives of the people on this planet. That there is this disease that is highly transmittable, that is killing people. And here in our country, 250,000 people who have died. Many more have been affected by this disease, and many more will continue to die uh, as a result of this disease. And there are things that we can do to reduce that number, that can slow down the spread of this virus. We hear of these two new vaccines with Pfizer and Moderna, Moderna, and very promising vaccines that hopefully will complete trials and will begin to be able to distribute. But that distribution is still being looked at. How do we distribute these vaccines? And it's not just a matter of uh, centers from which these vaccines can be distributed. It's how do we keep these vaccines viable? The Pfizer needs to be at a very extremely low temperature uh, in order to be stored properly. It can be brought up in temperature for a few days and held at a higher temperature for a few days, but it's still a very cold, low temperature that it needs to be maintained in order to retain its viability. Moderna's vaccine apparently is not necessary to be at such a low temperature, but nevertheless still requires some uh, low temperatures in order to maintain its viability. And just before administering these vaccines, of course, the temperatures can be brought up, but not held at that temperature for very long. So there are still logistical issues that need to be solved. It's a promising vaccine with 95% efficacy. Still, the if there are any ill effects, it's not it seems to be very safe, but there still needs to be some trials in order for us to be confident in not just the effectiveness, but the safety of these vaccines. And they're just beginning also to start testing younger people because their metabolism, their physical structure is different. And so how these vaccines will affect them still is being looked at. And the younger, below teens, it's not clear how these vaccines will affect them as well. And, there's still a lot to be done in order for these vaccines to be distributed. And in that distribution of the vaccine, even if we are able to resolve all the logistical issues associated with the distribution of that vaccine, and we understand the efficacy of these vaccines, that they are good and they're safe, and that everybody is able to take these vaccines. In order for that vaccine, however, to be effective in a community, I think it's 75% of the population needs to receive the vaccination in order for it to be effective. And there are many people who are concerned about vaccines, not just anti-vaxxers, but people who are concerned about the effects of these vaccines on ourselves, on our bodies, and may not feel comfortable taking these vaccines. So it's not just the development of these vaccines, it's not just the safety of these vaccines, but there are still logistical distribution problems, as well as our population feeling that it is something that we can trust in, that the safety of these vaccines are accurately reported. So it's a long ways until we're beyond this point in which we find ourselves today. Although there are many things that are promising, there is still a long ways to go before we'll be able to kind of step outside and not be as concerned as we are today of this virus in this pandemic, how we might affect ourselves and others. That for us as Buddhists should not be troubling. As Buddhists, at the core of our teachings, our beliefs is that we should be concerned for the welfare of others, not just what I want, or not just what I want to do, or what I want to have. It's about the concern for others. In our Sangha Padma class this morning, we were talking about the Shakyamuni Buddha's enlightenment and the first Dharma message that he shared with these 5 students that he was traveling with towards the end of his ascetic practice, who left him and went on to other teachers. And after his experience of enlightenment, Siddhartha went to see them. He was intending, hopefully, to see other people to share to teachers that he had learned from, to share what he had learned. But he was unable to, either because they had died or unable to find them. And he met with these 5 ascetics that had given up on Siddhartha, who turned their backs on him when they first saw him. But Siddhartha persisted, and he shared with them the Four Noble Truths. But at the end of his meditation, at the end of that period when he sat, beneath the Bodhi tree, he was challenged by Mara to give up, to try and unseat Mara tried to unseat Siddhartha from the seat of enlightenment, but he resisted. Siddhartha resisted, and he eventually, Mara said, "Okay, you win, but you should enjoy your enlightenment and just stay here and enjoy and to go out." But Siddhartha decided that he would get out from the tree of enlightenment and share what he had learned with others. So in this moment, right, there's these two very central components of enlightenment: wisdom and compassion. Wisdom that allows us to see things as they are, and compassion that allows us to that shapes the way that we engage the world. It's not just wisdom, nor is just caring for the world around us. It's these two things together that make up the central components of enlightenment: wisdom and compassion. When we look at the statue of Amida, these two mudras symbolize wisdom and compassion. It's not just going out and caring for others or caring about others without knowledge, without wisdom. Nor is it simply wisdom and sitting back and not caring for others. It's these two components that make up the core of enlightenment. So at the beginning of Buddhism, there is these two things which should influence our lives: to see things as they are. There is this pandemic raging around us. There is research and there are facts. Somebody said, and I think there was a you're welcome to your own opinion, but not to your own facts. Welcome to your own opinion. You can think whatever you want and say whatever you want to say, but the facts are the facts. You are welcome to your own opinion, but not to your own facts. We know how this pandemic has taken so many lives, and we know how it is transmitted. And just with that little bit of information, our behavior can be changed. We can begin to engage the world in a compassionate way. Not just what I want, not just to ignore things, but then looking around us. And maybe it's part of that disconnect that we have with the pandemic and these 250,000 lives that have been taken as a result of this pandemic, this disease. And it's not just the lives of these 250,000 people, but their partners, their family members, their relatives, and the circle just expands multiple times. Even at twice that, even if there's just a partner, it's 500,000 people. Even if it's 3 others, it's 750,000 people. If it's 4 others, it's 1 million people that have been affected by these deaths. When we look at the world around us, Buddhism encourages us to look at things openly, to consider as best as we can, what is taking place in the world around us. We have so much information flowing to our lives. It's kind of like trying to take a sip from a fire hydrant. We get overwhelmed with all of this information that comes into our lives. And so we have to be kind of responsible for that flow of information. And as best as we can, again, we know that 250,000 people have died as a result of this disease. We know that the hospitals are being overwhelmed because of the number of cases that are starting to again rise. And we know as those cases rise and as the hospitals are overwhelmed, that many more people will die because of the inability to provide adequate medical care, because of the impact of the number of cases. And those are simple things to look at and recognize and understand that our behavior can affect the outcome of our interactions with people. That if we behave in a way that is safe, that that our concern for the welfare of others guides our behavior, then we can be a part of reducing the number of cases that this pandemic has generated. That we can, as they used to say months ago, lower the curve. Is that what they said? Lower the curve? I think that's what it was. To lower the number of infections through our behavior, social distancing, masks. Again, this is at the core of the teachings of the Buddha. Be aware as best as we can and respond to that in a way that is compassionate, that is caring for the welfare of others. This coming holiday season, the temptation may be to gather together, but as a Buddhist, we should reflect upon our understanding and reflect upon and think about our behavior and how our behavior can affect the world around us. There are ways in which we can still enjoy the company of others. There are ways in which we can share the joys of the relationships that we share. There are ways that perhaps we have not yet thought of, like how dependent we are upon Zoom for our daily kind of activities, whether it's going to Dharma school or preschool here, Lotus preschool here at the Beijing, these services weekly services that we do, or the memorial services and funeral services that we conducted that have all moved to Zoom, with our kind of regular board meetings and our many other meetings that we would never thought of being in this situation, and yet we are adjusting and we are becoming appreciative of what we're able to share, even through this somewhat new method of communicating. After our memorial services and funeral services, I'll leave the Zoom on for a little while. And it is really surprising how people will stay on the Zoom call and share with others what they've been experiencing, going through, catching up with one another, sharing stories. And I think a year ago it would have been so unimaginable that we would be able to share as much as we do in this remote time of remote communication. So as this holiday season begins with Thanksgiving and Bodhi Day, that's part of our holiday season, Bodhi Day, and Christmas and New Year's, times in which we would typically gather together, be in the company of friends and family, as we enter into this period of holidays. Use your imagination, use your skills and your intellect, and find new ways of doing things that we have been comfortable with in the past, but have been pushed to find new ways to share what we appreciate of one another. The Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, is an expression of gratitude and appreciation for the assurance of Amida Buddha that provides for the enlightenment of all beings. It is also an expression of gratitude for the life that surrounds us, that supports us, that nurtures us, and the opportunity to share our appreciation with one another. Stay safe. I don't think you could. You could probably mail a frozen turkey to your. There was this really interesting idea with a family member, families doing Thanksgiving together. Each family, you have multiple families, right? Thanksgiving dinner, multiple families. Each family prepares a certain portion, and then divide it up, and then take that to family members, so that you could Zoom and have the same meal together. So I would prepare the turkey. Some other buddy would prepare mashed potatoes. Some other family would do the casserole. Some other family would do something else, and then you divide that up, and then you deliver that, and each person then delivers that what they've prepared, and you can sit down and share that together. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Of course, there are challenges to that, but in any case, think about it. Use your imagination. Use your kind of enthusiasm, and figure out ways of doing things that we've done in the past in the new way, in a way that can become just as meaningful and as important as it has been up until now. Thank you again for joining us for this morning's service. Next week, we still have a 9:30 service and a 10:10 service. There's no Dharma school, but we'll have a 9:30 service. Michael Jones is a speaker for that service, and for the 10:10 service, Dennis Akizuki will be our guest speaker for that service. Next weekend, next Sunday, the 9:30 service will be Michael Jones. The speaker will be Michael Jones, and for the 10:10 service, Dennis Akizuki will be our speaker. The following week is Bodhi Day. And there's one service on Bodhi Day. It'll be a 10 o'clock service, and our guest speaker for that service is Dr. Scott Mitchell from the Institute of Buddhist Studies. He'll join us for that. Look forward to all of you joining us for these services. Please stay healthy, stay well, and do what you can to help others, even if it's a matter of just wearing a mask and keeping distance. But there's so much need out there. People who are out of work, who have food insecurity. People who are experiencing hardships that haven't been a part of our communities for a very long time. And so if you can, either go to a food bank or write a check to help somebody. Yesterday was a Cato Kai. Volunteers distributed potted plants from the Uenakas, Cupertino Flores, and distributed gifts that the committee put together, and volunteers drove these out to the Cato members. All kinds of ways to get involved, to do things that can hopefully make others feel better. That although our circumstances may be challenging, to be reminded that we are still thinking of one another, and through our actions, expressing a concern for the welfare of others. Okay, thank you very much. If you'll please join in Gassho and Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice Thanksgiving.